things have obviously gotten heated in the Middle East, in Israel, particularly in Palestine and occupied territories. So a number of teenagers have been killed on both sides, and then Hamas has had hundreds of their supporters detained. And in order to strike back, then they fired rockets into Israel, hundreds of them apparently. Now, those rockets, if they land on somebody, can kill them, and it's wrong, and they're firing them at civilians. Okay. I just understand context that they're nowhere near the rockets that the West has, whether it's the U.S., Israel, etc. Ours are substantially larger, so when they fall on someone, they will obliterate the area. Now, we'll get to that in a little bit, but proper context must be given to everything. So Israeli airstrikes have commenced. Now, like I said, there's violence on both sides. So let me give you a devastating quote about one piece of violence here. They explained, a witness did, "We saw one of the passengers beheaded. The head flew into the street. The driver lost his arms. The others, it was hard to tell. We tried to count the hands or feet, but it was all mixed together." So obviously that's ISIS or some radical Muslim terrorist. Well, ISIS is in Iraq and Syria. They can't be here. So it must be Hamas, right? No, that was Israel. That was an Israeli bomb. Now, is it better that the bomb beheaded the guy and ripped all their limbs apart? Would it have been worse if they did it by hand? Would it have been worse if it was a suicide car bombing, or they just drop a bomb from a distance and go, oh, it's okay. No, it's just we're playing war games here. I dropped a bomb. It's okay. And your head fell off. Okay, they say, no, no, no. We were targeting Hamas fighters. In fact, one of the guys they targeted was a Hamas leader. So I'm sure that the Israelis will agree that it's okay for the Palestinians to target and assassinate the Israeli leaders. That if, for example, Netanyahu was murdered, they'd say, well, that's fair. I mean, we murdered their leaders, so of course they'd want to murder ours. My guess is they would say, terrorists, right? Now, look, you could say, hey, well, they shouldn't have fired the rockets, and I agree with you that they shouldn't have fired the rockets. You think that it's appropriate to kill leaders? Okay, I mean, you can't have it both ways. We can't say it's appropriate to kill their leaders, but you can't kill our leaders. Okay, all right, so let's give you more details of what happened here. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the military to expand its Gaza operation and instructed the army to take their gloves off against Hamas and increase attacks on Gaza. Yeah, great, that's what you want. You want gloves off because that's going to show how tough you are, right? And then if Hamas takes their gloves off, then they're goddamn terrorists and they had it coming because all they understand is violence. Now let's understand more about what that means. This is the defense minister of Israel speaking now. We are preparing for a battle against Hamas, which will not end within a few days. We will not tolerate missiles being fired at Israeli towns, and we are prepared to extend the operations with all means at our disposal in order to keep hitting Hamas. Because, of course, more war is always the answer. You see how well that worked for us here in America when we attacked Iraq and occupied them for about 8 years. That was brilliant strategy. I mean, probably more than that, actually. And that worked out so well for the Iraqis and us. Turns out more war just got us more war. All right, the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, must be ready to go all the way, according to Netanyahu. All options are on the table, including a ground invasion. So now, when they go to explain, hey, you killed one of Hamas's leaders, in fact, you killed 11 people so far on these airstrikes. One of them happens to be a leader that was in a car that you obliterated. And they say, no, no, it's okay. That was a targeted killing. Once again, I ask whether it would be okay if Hamas did targeted killings of Israeli leaders. I'm sure the Israelis in the West and the U.S. would all say, oh, no, that was a targeted killing? That's fine. That's fine. Right? So let's show you the Israeli airstrikes here and the results of those Israeli airstrikes. So now, this is not a video of a guy chopping somebody's head off. It looks like your local video game. Oh, boom, there it is. Okay. So it all looks so clean and, you know, copacetic. Until, of course, you see what happens when those bombs land, which you're about to see in a minute. All right. Meanwhile, the Washington Post explains, a car carrying Shaban was struck by a missile in the early afternoon. Oh, there we go. Tuesday, while crossing a busy intersection near the main market, witnesses said. With all those civilians around, you did a bomb anyway. I wonder what would have happened if Hamas had lit off, let's say, a suicide car bomb in a busy market in the middle of Israel. An hour after the strike, young men were using their fingers to remove bits of flesh and bone that had splattered across shop windows and stucco walls. They collected the remains in plastic bags to return to the families for burial. Even if you think, who cares, Hamas had it coming, do you think that's a good idea for Israel? You think that when they're cleaning off bone fragments with their fingers in the Gaza Strip, that they're going to be in a peaceful mood, that they're going to want to, collaborate on peace and get a peace deal? Or do you think they're going to hate you forever and keep attacking in this endless war? Put a couple of thoughts behind it. Two things are going to happen. One, there's no end to this war. Your right-wing government doesn't want it to end. That's what they thrive on. Same with the right-wing government here in America. For them, more war is the answer. It keeps them in power. It keeps their contractors rich. It keeps all the things that they have done to justify their existence in place. They don't want peace. They want both sides picking each other's relatives off the walls with their fingers. And then the second thing is explained at the very end of the Reuters article. A further weakening of Hamas could lead to more radical Islamist groups in Gaza becoming stronger, a scenario that could alarm the Jewish state. What happens when you have pandemonium and chaos? Do you think more moderate forces come out of that? Or, as happened in Iraq and Syria, the most radical, the most fundamentalist, the most violent forces come out of that? Just look at what happened with ISIS. Look at what happened in the middle of the Iraq Civil War, both with Shiite militias and Sunni militias. The most radical and violent win out within their own group, and then they attack. This is not a recipe for peace. If you want to protect Israel and you want to keep it safe, I can guarantee you this is not the path. And it is a path of tremendous arrogance and hubris, even if you don't think that it's a big deal to occupy somebody for 47 years and to say you're not allowed to cross your own borders. We're going to do a blockade of you, so you can't even bring in food sometimes. You can't bring in goods. You can't trade. And that's a place that they theoretically gave back to the Palestinians, let alone the West Bank. Even if you think there's no moral problem with that and they had it coming, think about Israel for a second. You think that you're invincible? America thought we were invincible when we went into Iraq. Saddam's army in the desert. What are they going to do to us? Well, they did plenty. And it's not like us where we can just come home from Iraq and that's that. You live next to the Palestinians. When you open a Pandora's box, you have no idea what comes out. And Israel, especially their right-wing governments, keeps opening it and opening it and opening it. And one day, something horrific and unexpected is going to come out. We're not telling you that because we don't want to help Israel. We're telling you that because we do want to help Israel. Get a two-state solution. Get peace. Stop opening Pandora's box. Something terrible is going to come out. It always does.